views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast are the content creator's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Essex County College. The material and information presented here is for entertainment and informative purposes only. It should not be considered as professional advice or a substitute for seeking professional guidance.
Yeah, this is me, Jon Inahuazo, and welcome back to yet another episode of the LONER. And as I said already, like last episode, it's been a while since I last recorded something. Just a word of warning that I remember saying that on May 14th, the LONER was going to come back. I will admit that there was an episode afterwards. After I recorded this whole segment around the Students First Festival, there was another episode that I did in my bedroom, and so I briefly mentioned this to Mr. Odd, and unfortunately I never gave him the raw audio files for him to edit. And I still have that on my computer. So hopefully I still have the raw audio file so I can make some brief edits and then let the rest of the editors go ahead and modify and just finish up the rest of the show. So hopefully after this episode I'll give him the audio files. Hopefully he'll make it sound as good as he can for next week's show. So be prepared for that, because next week I'm going to be talking about Christianity. And next week, probably I'm going to receive some communion. Well, not the communion, but I'm going to be receiving the Holy Spirit, which means things are about to change for me, and things are about to change for at least the viewers. And that being said, I think I've said enough. So instead of the Christian episode, as I said, this episode will be pushed to next week, and this will be the very first episode that I recorded independently within a bedroom. So I just want to know, where do you prefer the studio here at the Essex County College's main campus, or do you prefer me go ahead and record some episodes in my bedroom? And if you like this environment, then I'll keep going. If you like my bedroom, then who knows. Next week you'll see how it sounds like. So today I just want to talk about infomercials, and let's just continue on with what I said already with television. So when it comes to television, you're just usually watching some boring syndicated shows. You're just watching some news. The news, of course, is important, but then you have breaking news that's over-exaggerated. And I've, come to learn all of the things that I've learned from watching TV, even though I don't even watch TV anymore. Considering how boring it is, and considering how I mentioned before that South Park was getting a 27th season, my wish got granted, which I've mentioned before. And then we have, some layoffs. We have, things that I'm not able to remember at this time. But so you can see, I've wanted to cover up that this is the first episode where I'm only going to be covering, or yes, at least I'll be covering the summer first semester, and then after summer 2, this show will go on hiatus for a bit. So when it comes to television, I'm just saying how boring it is, and even I'll admit, some of the courses may not be as fun as I used to believe it is, but I just have to do it because it's part of the graduation requirements. And guess what? I could have just taken as I said, I could have just taken Math 086 or Math 087, whatever it was, to go ahead and satisfy the requirements. But unfortunately, even that class isn't gonna accept me, and I have to take biology class instead, because it turns out I'm still not strong in mathematics. That maybe I could just try biology and science. And so if I succeed in biology more, then I guess I'm just bad at numbers. Or not just bad at numbers, but more bad at mathematics, in algebra at least. That's probably the reason why I'm not able to make it into calculus. I'm not going to make it into calculus. Most likely I would get a 0 out of that, just like the Math 092 final exam. And, I've actually started a YouTube channel, as I said last week. And in that case, 2 weeks ago, I've mentioned, go ahead and check out XG24 or GoCity25. That's actually the official name. And I've actually, come to think of it, I've made some reviews. I haven't saw any comments at all, no interactions or anything. Episode 9 of the LONER, the original cut, didn't really do anything. And if you've seen the episode, then unfortunately I was hit with another copyright. Unfortunately, I was met with some copyright infringement, and not copyright infringement, but some copyright concerns that's going to affect episode 9. So originally, I did a whole segment where I was giving you a tour on the Clara. Well, it was the Dasher Student Center, not the Dasher Center. that I already admit I could have done better if I decided to buy a recorder. If not, I could have just activated the audio. The lost audio did affect me because this could have been a longer segment, but thankfully it wouldn't because thankfully there is an advantage to this. The whole tour and this whole video that I did didn't really go on and on for so long, so at least I did the best I could. And I've actually also made the decision to go ahead and start making another video where, let's just say it's going to be like a fictional sign off, like it has if you've seen television sign off in the 1970s, the 80s, and 90s. You're going to be seeing that in the season finale, and I've actually chosen a song for it. And I hope you guys will enjoy that sign off video as much as I can because this is going to be more experimental and mostly not inspired by Richard, but mostly my attempts at making some experimental video while also narrating in front of a bedroom. So it's going to be another one of those videos where I record something on campus and I edit on DaVinci Resolve. And most likely this episode's already edited on Premiere Pro, but I'm not going to break the fourth wall in there. So just a few updates there, but in case I think I'm going on for so long. So infomercials, let me go back to infomercials. They're completely boring where you can just become sellout, where you're just sellouts. And let's just talk about Gohard's video because I admit that some of the things I've learned out of education and some of the things I've learned from out of school mostly came from Gohard, and so I've learned how to use AI. And if you remember episode 3, I think episode 4 was artificially corrupted. I will admit that I didn't do a good job in researching on artificial intelligence when I already did better, when I was already better in writing in my thesis paper. Well, not my thesis paper, but back when I already did this assignment, in that case would be the research paper. At this point, I don't even remember. But here's the thing. Artificial intelligence, as I said, is not even a good solution. It's not even a solution for any student. Really just depends on which AI software you use. Like any chatbot that you use, like ChatGPT, at least there's a benefit in using it, even though it's going to lead to betrayal as well. And so I've already admit Gemini is one of the worst AI services that I've used out of Google, and of course I've heard that. Well, not I've heard that. This is just based out of one of my personal experiences. Like you can always get some misinformation. You can get all of this, and I'll admit, only one professor said to use AI, but I'm not going to be naming who and why. But as I said, AI has its own benefits where you can go in and type in and generate any prompt. But I feel like there are just way too many sellers that I have to name. And I think this is where I want to focus on commercials and infomercials. It's like whenever I go to Instagram, I've seen some creators who I don't even know. It's like you can see one creator just doing something, and yet I don't even know who the influencer is. It's like, who are you? That's one of the main questions I always ask whenever I watch an advertisement for like Adobe Premiere Pro, Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Express, all that. And then I just say, it's like, come on, another AI advertisement. I'm moving on. It's like I just want to watch another video that doesn't involve any sort of AI. And that's what I really hate about it. So make this as AI, my rant on AI part 2, including infomercials. And that's why I just see it as a sellout. And so let me go on my phone because I've realized I'm just rambling on, but at least I'm better at rambling than going on topic. So AI-powered tools, of course, has its own benefits. You can generate any prompt, you can say anything to the prompt, and at the end of the day, it just doesn't have any emotion like the average human does. And if you're not teaching, and of course, if you're using education improperly, then there's already a disadvantage for. I don't really think anybody would hire you in the future, which includes employment. And now that I found the video, it's called "I Wish I Had This AI Laptop in College." And in my response, I'll say this. Since Essex County College is like a walking commercials to Apple products, I wish I can get a MacBook too. It's like, I wish that on Christmas I can go ahead and buy a MacBook Pro because apparently my Asus laptop is so slow that my battery life is already low. Well, I'm not really gonna mock anybody, but I'll admit this is true, and it's it's mostly the reason why I have to bring a charger most on longer days, in which in that case would be the average college day. So whenever I have to go to college, and a majority of the time I have to attend classes from 8:30 all the way to 4, then I'll be needing a laptop charger, and as you can see, it can be a bit, but the charger itself is already bulky, and if you use a MacBook, then you have an advantage where the performance is optimized, and when it comes to the optimization, and hopefully I pronounced that right, it just means you're getting faster performance. So I don't have the intelligence of Asa, and I don't have the intelligence of Richard, but at least I've learned how to use the Sony ZV-E10 with some lens, and so that's what I'm learning out of photography classes recently. And I've oversighted on the bad photos because apparently I've actually did a good job on taking the photos. I've just forgot that I could have taken some bad photos and do that on purpose, just so I can learn. And I guess if you go on auto mode, then you're not really a professional, and if you go on manual mode, then you're learning something than just using an iPhone or a Samsung. And I can understand how the average person uses an iPhone or any sort of phone to start filming a video. So if you're a beginner, they're all going to say just use an iPhone, like use any smartphone to start making videos. And there is a benefit to it, but then again, there's also a disadvantage. And so if you ever want to learn how to use an iPhone, then you can call us the industry center for for a smartphone. The only issue is if you want to go ahead and make it cinematic, then you're better off you're not better off buying a camcorder like $1,000 or like $100,000 just for a red camera. You can buy that if you want to, but it's like I would recommend more like a Sony A6700 because everybody else said so. In that case, would be the weakest attempt of me just giving you a recommendation. So I would probably ignore that, and just ignore the whole message that I just said. That's how much of a sellout it can be when it comes to infomercials. And so let me go back into what I was just saying now. So when it comes to infomercials, you're just watching some commercials where they're just advertising you something, and how when it comes to advertisements, you're just watching the advantages, you're just overlooking the disadvantages. And so it's like if every company is going to use AI, then you're just becoming lazier then. And so I understand the reason why people, of course, are concerned about how they're going to lose jobs, and when it comes to losing jobs, then there's just not really much hope when it comes to video games or even animation, and in that case, coding. And recently, I've been hearing some not concerns, but I've just went to first year experience, and that was a required course that I had to go. So I'm actually doing well. Apparently, I'm doing well, and for art appreciation, I got to go to that class next after this episode's over. So it's just basically a live version of art history. And so if you want to do art history, then I'll be fine to do so. But it's like I'm better off if I'm doing summer classes, and I'm just better off just using some classes that I won't really care about and just fast forward them to 7 weeks and then just turn back to the fun later in this fall. And that's why I want to make this show more experimental instead of just discussing the same topics over and over. And maybe there will be something new that I have to talk about. Maybe let's talk about the victim mindset and why that's bad. And except I don't really focus much on that, but if you already remember episode 3's Mediocrity TV, then I gave you a little hint on that about how not to act like a victim. So that's what I'm trying not to do. And after this episode, I'll probably talk about my mental health as well, because I don't want to oversight this with information you've already heard about, and then I just want to talk more about my personal experience afterwards. And so hopefully next episode you'll enjoy me hear more about my life outside of campus and what I do in college. And then after that, we're going to be moving on to my mental health and my relationship with my family. And there's one thing I want to learn as well. There's one thing I did learn, not to send misinformation out of Saberspark. And so I've heard the controversy around that, and that also makes you a sellout. I realized when I've made the video called Rawless Critiques, I realized when I've made the pilot episode for Rawless Critiques, sometimes I would follow the directions that sometimes it's better off not making the whole joke. Like, there are some sensitive topics that need to be addressed with care. And unfortunately, I love Kim Possible a lot. Doesn't really do that, and the video, of course, is deleted, so I'm not able to show you anything. Nor would I want to go ahead and show any sort of propaganda or misinformation. So I still stand from what I said in my show. If you ever want to do you'll still need some critical thinking skills. You need to do some research, and I think that's what they've oversighted, and I think that's what she oversighted on. There was no research. There was just mostly false information, and if you've seen the darkest moments on television, then we also have that situation as well in Brazil back in the 1990s. And so, because of how dark it is, and the sensitive nature of suicide, the dark nature of, well, I also want to mention that because, as I said, I don't want to take this word as a joke. And unfortunately, when it comes to sexual behavior, sexual harassment, and all the allegations, you can just like, the thing is, you can make yourself look awful if you're just gonna victimize an innocent person. So if you're victimizing an innocent person for doing nothing and just assuming that they did this, they did that, without any sense of evidence, then we're just preparing ourselves for a lawsuit. And I'll be thankful for this show because I probably won't get a lawsuit until the future. Probably not, but it's all royalty free music, and I never win. Because when it comes to the intro, I could always replace background music, and then later on I'll still get suffered, and then I still have to look at copyright concerns, where I have to replace another set of background music to the fact that I'm probably better off making my own music, and that's probably going to be copyright claimed as well because I'm sampling one song and another, and so maybe I'll talk about that in a future show. So maybe stay tuned for that because I also want to talk about my journey within music because I'm not just only a visual artist. So I think this episode doesn't really have any topics or anything to talk about aside from going back to commercials and talking about AI. And so let's go ahead and see this part. Let's just go ahead and see this video itself. So the video starts with thanks to LG for sponsoring this video. And so we're looking at a whole infomercial where, let me go ahead and just see the description. Level up your productivity with the new LG Gram Pro 16, the ultimate AI laptop for students and creators, sponsored by LG. So basically, this video is mostly just a sponsored video where I don't really want to watch it, and apparently it's one of the lowest viewed videos at least in this year. And thankfully, I never watched this video at all because why would I want to buy a laptop when I already have a decent laptop like Asus? It's like I don't really need another laptop to give me some misinformation and then just give me the most basic information when I can go on and do some more research. And once that research happens, I can make a proper script. And so that's what I'm oversighting it with. But I don't want to give you guys some boring lecture. I don't want to give you something boring to listen to. So I'll go ahead and say this right now. If you already own a MacBook Air or a MacBook Pro, then you're better off buying that instead of another laptop from Windows. But if you're prioritizing some gaming laptops or 3D design laptops, like if you want to be an animator, if you want to be a graphic designer, then the MacBook, I already understand that with the optimization of macOS, and there's already a benefit of using MacBooks because at least you have better battery life and you have better color accuracy. That's what I don't have on my current laptop. And so hopefully for Christmas I'll be able to buy a MacBook Pro, and it will be the base model, not to go ahead and buy, or maybe the Mac Mini. But I'm better off buying a MacBook Pro because even though it will not perform the same as a PC, at least I can learn how to make video games out of a MacBook instead of just using the same Windows laptop that I've been using over a decade. And so that's what we have here. And so we have some special promo codes and the LG Gram Pro 16. But personally, there's just no Gram. Well, I'm actually going to look at what the laptop contains. And this is for and apparently the price is all this. According to, if you're a college student, then this is what you got to pay for this advertisement video. So $2,549.99, and that's close to $2,550. But apparently they have during a discount where they're lowering that as $2,099.99. And I still feel like this laptop itself is already expensive. That, as I said, you're better off buying a MacBook. And so if you want to buy a MacBook Air, then you'll be fine using that because you'll have some better battery life. You're gonna have some better sound, and even though the image quality may not be the same as a MacBook Pro, at least you can do a decent job making some basic video edits, making some music on on GarageBand. Even though we'll transfer from FL Studio to not Audacity, but to Ableton Live because that's what I've been recommended on Guitar Center. And so that's what I want to do with my laptop. And so if I ever want to buy a new laptop for college, then I would rather buy a MacBook because at least I'll have some benefits that I wasn't able to get from Windows. And so there are some exclusive apps that I wish I would want to experiment with. And so thankfully, if I buy a MacBook, then I'll go ahead and buy that. And so that's just what I'm trying to say. And so I'm not trying to say if you're a student, buy a MacBook. Your laptop already works fine. Unless if your laptop is slow, then I would prefer for you to either buy a new laptop, whether you do have the money or not. I would rather prefer you go ahead and buy a MacBook Air. And if you're a professional, or if you want to join the industry, then I would prefer you guys to buy a MacBook Pro. And so remember, maybe just buy the base model because you don't really want to buy. Well, unless you want to go to 48 gigabytes of unified memory or 48 gigabytes of unified RAM, then I feel like using this laptop has something better. So like there's a better it's not bang for your buck, but there's a better value of using a MacBook than just using an AI-powered laptop without any graphics card, like NVIDIA or even a processor. But let me just see what we have here. So apparently we have the Intel Core Ultra 9, 36 gigabytes of RAM, and then 2 terabytes of storage. And so this sounds like it's a decent laptop. And even though 24 gigabytes of RAM may not be as big as 32 gigabytes, if you buy a MacBook Mini, then you switch it off to like 48 gigabytes of RAM with 1 terabyte of storage, and if you already have a monitor, then I feel like that's the best way to spend your money if you want to buy a new computer. And so that's what I want to talk about. Maybe let's talk about infomercials and computers, because I feel like if I am advanced in technology and I know much about new media technology, then maybe I can maybe just suggest you what to buy instead. And some people will say to go ahead and buy the base model. So I think I think it's not just about personal preferences, but I think you really need to think about what you're going to be doing in the near future. So if you want to do some animation, you want to do some visual effects, maybe do some gaming, then yeah, sure, you'll be fine. You'll be fine with 32 gigabytes of RAM, and then later on you'll be upgrading that to 64 gigabytes of RAM. And if you want to do a MacBook, if you want to go to the Apple ecosystem, then you're already making a good choice, because I would prefer you to either buy the N4. I would prefer if you spend your money on an M4, on a Mac Mini, if you already have a TV, then that's going to be fine for you. Unless you want to spend an OLED TV or an OLED monitor, then you're going to get some benefits as well. But anyways, and so I would prefer for you to go ahead and get 32 gigabytes of RAM and 1 terabyte of storage. That would be the best way for you to spend a computer, more than just better. And that's just actually better because it's a PC and it's a portable laptop, a portable computer. And even though the MacBook is not a computer, it's a laptop. The Mac Mini is like a PC, but it's smaller than your average PC. So if you're into Windows, then spend your money, but then I feel like you're better off spending your money on a PC. So if you want to buy a gaming PC, then make sure you have the RTX 4070 or the RTX 4080. That, of course, will give you a better advantage at gaming. And so I think that's just up to you whether you want to buy Windows for DaVinci Resolve. But I feel like DaVinci Resolve should work better on a MacBook. And so I want to try that next time. Not next time, but in the future, I'll try and see whether DaVinci Resolve works faster on my MacBook instead of my Windows. So, and if I think I love my MacBook more than my Windows, then maybe I'll use my Windows as a secondary laptop, while using the MacBook as my main college laptop. Because, as I said, Essex County College is a walking commercial for MacBooks, and I want to prioritize some buying recommendations. So that's what I want to talk about. So infomercials, let me go back into that topic. So if you've done enough research, then maybe you'll understand the purpose between a laptop, not just see the same points where, because this laptop has AI in it, you should buy that. You should just go ahead and buy it. So I feel like if you don't want to buy it, then don't buy it. And personally, this is up to you. But at the end of the day, you already have ChatGPT as your AI, so maybe just use that instead. Like you don't really need, or maybe just use ChatGPT Plus if you're flirty with AI. But I will say this right now. You can use AI all you want, but I'll say this right now. Don't use AI for all of your for all your tasks because you'll also need to learn how to read as well. So if you know how to read, if you look over, if you highlight some notes around 15% of the time, if you highlight some of the things that's important for your quiz and for your exam, then you're gonna do a better job than just prioritizing or just asking AI for this and that. And some of the things and some of the questions that are that are easy to solve, you don't really need to use artificial intelligence and all that. So this is a remake and probably a better version of AI. Because I am a human, not an AI, and I feel like if I sit and I will say this again, do not use my voice to spread any misinformation because I will not be granting anybody permission to use my voice to and then just generate some blockery, not blockery, but just some nonsense that I would not tolerate or say anything. So I think that's just one thing I would like to say as well. And so to recap, we have some unknown users that I've never heard of, but I feel like that. I feel like if you do understand the app well, then sure, an investor into advertising an app, but also know its controversies. Also know its controversies in its history. And so if you want to compete, well, if you want to collaborate with Adobe, then hopefully you'll be talented because I don't want anybody who just go on and become a social media influencer and say to everybody, "Oh, use this laptop because I am better off using that," or Canva. Who even uses Canva when I can just use Adobe Express and all that? It's like I feel like you also have to listen to the negative comments as well. And so I'll say this right now: if you don't really like the content I make, then I'm fine. I will not hate you at all. So at the end of the day, I'll go ahead and say this again. Infomercials, most of the time are completely boring, that you're better off just turning off the TV and maybe just prioritize the budgeting once again. Just prioritize budgeting and then maybe just consider whether you do really need it or not. So always remember that if you want to buy a new laptop, then I would say this. Just don't go ahead and buy this laptop at all. You're better off buying a MacBook. And if you still want to use AI, then I would prefer to go ahead and just maybe either use the free version of ChatGPT because that's more accessible. So I think at the end of the day, it's not really worth buying $20 out of your wallet and say I am better than everybody because I use AI. Because I would clearly you're just missing the point of using AI, and I just don't want to show envy at all. But I think I already said enough. I'm about to go right now, but I think I've said enough. I'm probably going to run this off for too long. So, yeah, just always remember all that. And until then, this is me, Jon Inahuazo, as I said. Next week, I'll go ahead and discuss more about about church. And so hopefully none of you will be offended by this because I'll be giving you my thoughts on what I've did in confirmation class. And hopefully this won't be it. This won't be the worst episode that I did. Hopefully it's not the worst episode I've done. And if that happens, of course, if you do like this topic as well, then maybe I'll talk more about my personal experiences in the future. But as I said, I'm the loner, so of course this show is only going to be accessible to one person, even if I don't have that many viewers to listen to me. But I think I've said enough, and I think that you've heard enough from me. So that's all the time for today, and that's all the time for me. And I'm gonna be going back to class and maybe eat something. If I don't eat something, then at least I can go ahead and listen to art history with the mustache guy. That's gonna be the nickname for David. And until then, this is me, Jon Inahuazo. This is me, Jon Inahuazo. Hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode of The Loner. Remember, next week you'll be hearing a bedroom recording of the church. And until then, I'll catch you guys next week at the same time, same hour and all that. Take care of yourselves, and thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Have a great night, and have a good rest of your day.
This has been a production of the Essex County College Podcast Club. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved.